And for the minority report, the chair recognizes Representative Park.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today in opposition to House Bill 789 because it raises concerns regarding vicarious liability and because it violates free market principles. While I applaud the author's intent to clarify the rules to bring certainty to the marketplace, this bill creates additional regulations that are not needed in a new marketplace that warrants greater scrutiny. House Bill 789 would define when a person working on or through a digital marketplace platform to provide services to an individual is an independent contractor. If classified as an independent contractor, the digital marketplace platform like Uber or Handy would not be liable for any action or inaction of the individual considered an independent contractor. This would allow the company and others like it to completely insulate or protect themselves from any liability resulting from any harm or damage that may be caused by the contractor to the consumer. So while the app or digital platform benefits from facilitating the meeting between the contractor and consumer, it takes no responsibility for any harm that may be caused. Responsibility for any harm falls on either the consumer or the contractor. In committee, an amendment was offered to the bill to require a digital marketplace platform of this kind to publicly disclaim any liability by allowing consumers to know their workers are independent contractors. The purpose of the amendment was to bring transparency and allow consumers to know they are responsible for the actions of a contractor they may use or invite into their home, and not the app or digital marketplace platform in which they found the contractor. This amendment was defeated in committee. There is additional concern as to whether contractors such as an electrician, a carpenter, or handyman who may use a digital app like Handy.com are properly licensed and insured. During committee, the general counsel of Handy.com, the primary supporter of this bill, testified they had a self-certification process for both. This is problematic, however, because if the contractor is not properly insured, Georgians and others who get a contractor from this app will be held fully liable for and responsible for any harm, whether they know it or not. To consider another possible scenario under the framework created by this piece of legislation, let's consider a babysitter app, which can say on their app that they guarantee their services. But they would have zero responsibility if a babysitter hired through this app, God forbid, molests a child. There are no protections whatsoever that would exist through this framework that's created. This bill has a potential to protect bad actors without recourse and harm Georgia families. These regulations are not needed. I believe in the principles of limited government and the self-regulating capacity of the free market. And based on these principles, I again urge my colleagues to vote no against this bill. HB 789 creates new rules and regulations in the digital marketplace that are not needed. The tech industry in Georgia has grown and thrived without these new rules and will continue to do so. Government should not be in the business of picking winners and losers, and if a company cannot grow in this state without additional protections to prevent it from being sued, based on the understanding that a free market is self-regulating, perhaps companies should not continue to expand in this state. This bill further has the potential to put thousands of service-providing small businesses in Georgia across the state at a significant disadvantage to the handful of companies who have asked for this no accountability bill. Now, if there is a need to bring certainty to the digital marketplace, we can codify existing case law that differentiates between an independent contractor and an employee, rather than creating one set of rules for a certain industry that does not apply to another. These kinds of loopholes will do nothing but add confusion to the marketplace rather than certainty. Lastly, I believe additional time is needed to study and examine House Bill 789 and its long-term impact. As technological innovation continues to disrupt traditional means of doing business, this has created new challenges, such as the displacement of blue-collar jobs through automation. It is estimated that by 2020, 40% of America's workforce will be independent contractors or freelancers. While this creates flexibility and the right to work, the responsibility of paying for health care, retirement, and all other benefits falls solely on Georgia families who are independent contractors. Georgia's middle-class families are already being squeezed. As the cost of health insurance and college tuition rises while wages remain stagnant, this bill does nothing to alleviate the difficulties Georgia's middle class faces. Now, I support efforts to ensure Georgia remains the #1 state to do business, and I understand that requires at times to modify our laws to sustain a business-friendly environment. However, keeping our state attractive to businesses in the long run, especially as we move towards a knowledge-based economy, will require developing a healthy, educated, and highly skilled workforce. And to do that, we need to invest in our state's most important resource, and that's its people, those we were elected to serve. And House Bill 789 does not do that. So for all of these reasons, I urge my colleagues today to vote no to House Bill 89. With that, Mr. Speaker, I will yield for any questions.
You do have a question if you care to yield.
I'll yield.
Chair recognizes Representative Carpenter to your right for a question.
Does the speaker yield?
I yield.
Is it not true that somebody from your party actually spoke in support of this bill in our committee?
That is true.
No further questions.
You have no further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With that, I yield the will.